Imagine this. You get tricked into joining a cult, and not like a silly fake one. No, a real dangerous cult. But by the time you realize what you just got yourself into, it might be too late to escape. Because this is exactly what happened to me during my first year of college. Let me explain. So when I first showed up on campus to college, I didn't know a single person. Everyone seemed to have their friend groups already, making plans as if they've known each other forever. Meanwhile, I was just sitting alone in the dining area at school checking the weather in Cupertino. So I was super desperate to make friends. I didn't care who it was. At this point, I was so down bad that you could have been the person who doesn't return their shopping cart at the grocery store, and I still would have been down to hang out. But because of this desperation, I befriended the person who got me into this whole mess. Now, I'm not gonna say the person's actual name, but for the sake of the video, let's just refer to him as Charles. Get it? Charles? Colt? Yeah, hopefully you get the reference, or it's just gonna sound stupid. Anyways, Charles was the first person at college who I became friends with. And I should have known from the first time he talked to me that he was trying to manipulate me, because one day after class, I was on my phone not talking to anyone, trying to be that cool, mysterious guy, when in reality, it just made people think I couldn't talk and I was autistic. Not a joke, by the way. That's something that someone has actually told me before, because I just would never talk. I know I yap a lot on here, but in person, I'm shy. But it was in this moment where Charles tapped on my shoulder and asked if he could sit next to me. Of course, I said yes, and at first, he didn't say a word. He just sat there looking around as if he was waiting for something to happen. But then out of nowhere, he compliments my shoes. So I said thank you, and I'm pretty sure the next thing he told me was something the cult taught him in order to recruit people. What did he say? Out of nowhere, without ever previously talking to me, he told me about how he's really struggling to find friends, and he feels like everyone else already had their friend groups. Now, does that sound familiar? It's almost like that's the exact same thing I said I was feeling. So I'm fairly confident Charles knew I felt this way, and that's why he even approached me in the first place. Because think about it, if you're a cult, it's probably a lot easier to convince people like me who are super lonely and look like they don't have an IQ over 5 to join rather than a normal person. Not saying my IQ is 5 though, mine's way higher. Matter of fact, I took an IQ test the other week and I got a score of 45, which I'm pretty sure is above average. I'm gonna check actually. What is the average IQ? 100? Okay, whatever. The test I took was probably just wrong anyway. I guess I can see now why they thought I was an easy target. But anyways, Charles started talking to me about how hard it was going to a new school. And at the time, I thought he was just a kid in the exact same position that I was. So it was really nice to hear that I wasn't the only one going through these struggles. And we became friends very quickly. We'd hang out all the time. And for the first couple of days, he seemed completely normal. And we would just do normal, regular, non-cult things like CrossFit. Just kidding. CrossFit is definitely a cult too. But that's not the one this video is about. So after the first couple days of hanging out with each other, that's when Charles told me about the deli he worked at. Which once again, I won't say the name of, but I will tell you, if you really want to find it, you'll easily be able to look it up and find the exact place I'm talking about after watching the full video. Me being unfamiliar with the area, I had never heard of this deli. And at first, I just assumed it was a normal place to eat. I had no reason to think otherwise. But when he was telling me about his job, he said that I should totally come and eat there because he could get me free meals. Being the broke college student I was, my eyes lit up when he said that. Because if there's one thing you should never do when you work at a restaurant, it's offer free meals to your big back friends. I was about to live in that deli until I realized what was going on there. Because the first time I stepped into the deli, it just was a little bit weird. Why do I say that? Well, the actual deli itself seemed like a normal place that made great sandwiches. But when you started interacting with the workers more, that's when you'd start to question what was going on there. Because it almost felt like the workers there were straight out of the movie Get Out. What I mean by that is it felt like they were all hiding something. You could just tell by the way they acted that that was not their normal personalities. And I'm not saying in like a, oh, they're just trying to be good servers way. No, it felt different. And the weirdest part was when my friend was working, he was like this too. Outside of work, he seemed like a normal dude. But when he was in that deli working around all those other people, he started acting different. I noticed this the first time I went into the restaurant, but I didn't really think anything of it because I wasn't aware of the cult at the time. Like I just assumed they had a strict boss or something that made them act this way. But besides the employees themselves being a little strange, I loved the deli. They had great food and it was free every time I went, so I was there a lot. And because I was there so often, I got to know more of the employees. Sure, they were all a little weird, but they were really nice, and that was enough for me because like I said, I didn't have many friends when I first got here. So the people at this deli practically became my new friend group, and eventually, after going there so often, my friend asked if I would ever want to work there. And this is where it all went downhill. Because I saw this as a chance to meet new people and make some money, so I said yes. But little did I know how bad of a decision this would be, because although I thought I was saying yes to a job at a deli, in reality, I was saying yes to joining a cult. That may sound absurd, but trust me, it'll all make sense soon. So when I agreed to work there, I didn't know any details about the job. I kind of just said yes right on the spot when they asked me because I was so desperate. I didn't care what the job paid or anything like that, so I didn't ask a lot of the questions that I probably should have. Because if I had, I would have learned that they don't run this place like a normal restaurant. What do I mean by that? Well, if you worked at this deli, you weren't an employee. You were a volunteer, because none of the people that worked there actually got paid. They were just working there by choice. And like I said, I didn't ask any of the questions I should have before taking the job, so I just assumed when it was my first couple days of working there, I thought there would just be a check that came in after 2 weeks. But no, that's not how it worked. And I found this out about 3 days into the job when I was low on cash. And I was wondering when that first check would come in, so I asked my friend about it. But his response was weird because he was kind of just like, oh, yeah, it'll be okay, don't worry. Well, that doesn't answer my question. It'll all be okay is what I want to hear after I just failed my 3rd math test in a row. Not when I'm asking about getting paid. But once again, I just brushed it off and assumed that it would all be okay. And what happened next is where everything started to really make sense, but also get really scary at the same time. Because I wore a hat with the name of the deli on it that they gave me to school one day. And all of a sudden, every kid at school was staring at me, giving me weird looks. I used to be invisible in college, yet now, people were looking at me like I was P. Diddy. Had to sneak another Diddy joke in there. I'm pretty sure that's 6 videos in a row now. I don't know why I keep saying them. But seriously, that's how everyone reacted to seeing me. I would make eye contact with someone, and at first, they would maybe let out a half smile or no expression at all. But the moment they saw my hat, they looked disgusted. It was literally like this. You would have thought my hat said something ridiculous on it, like Michael Jordan's better than LeBron. But being the 45 IQ civilian I am, I didn't put 2 and 2 together to realize that people were giving me weird looks because of what the hat said. I thought they were so disgusted by my comically large forehead that they were giving me nasty looks. That was until I got to class. And I was pretty friendly with the kid that sat next to me in this class. So when I sat down, I said, "What's up?" But as he's saying hi back to me, he looks at my hat and starts laughing. Since I actually knew him, I was comfortable with asking him why everyone was doing this. So I said, "Why does everyone keep having weird reactions to seeing the top of my head today?" And he was like,
"What do you mean? It's obviously the hat."
But I was confused because everyone else's reaction to seeing my hat was pure disgust while he was laughing. So I asked what was funny about it, and he went,
"Wait, are you being serious?"
And I was like, "Yeah, everyone's been acting really weird when they see my hat, and I don't get it." Then he was like,
"Wait, you really don't know, do you?"
I said no again, but this is when he told me,
"Dude, the hat you're wearing is from a cult."
What?
I broke out laughing because never in my wildest dreams would I have thought those words would come out of his mouth when describing this deli. Because it wasn't a cult, it was a restaurant. And I knew the people that worked there. Sure, there was a good chance they were literal NPCs by the way they acted, but they weren't in a cult, right? And plus, I was literally working there now, and it seemed like a normal restaurant to me, so I said back to him, "All right, actually though, what's the reason you were laughing at the hat?" Then he told me he wasn't joking, and of course I still didn't believe him, so that's when I said, "Dude, I know you're lying because I worked there." But the moment I told him that, he went from laughing and smiling to a completely straight face. Then he goes,
"Wait, do you actually?"
And I told him, "Yeah, how else do you think I got this hat in the first place?"
"I don't know, I thought you just got it as a joke to wear ironically."
So he finally started to believe that I truly did work there, and he looked me straight in the eyes and said,
"Dude, you need to quit now."
So I asked what was so bad about the place, and he told me,
"Go on your phone, search up the name of the deli and the word cult, and see what pops up."
So I go on to Google and do just what he says, but I never could have prepared myself for what I was about to see because the results were so much worse than I could have ever imagined. Let me just read you the first article that popped up when I searched this. The blank deli had gained notoriety for its extreme beliefs and allegations of child abuse. And then it went further stating, in collected FBI interviews, there are multiple allegations of abuse within the communities of the tribe associated with this deli. Law enforcement has received complaints of abuse from this deli's locations in multiple states. One article called it a cult disguised as a sandwich shop. To put it lightly, I could not believe what I was reading.
Oh, but Tyler, what else did you expect when the kid in class told you that this was a cult?
I don't know. I thought he was calling it a cult like how Lana Del Rey or Playboy Cardi fans say they're in a cult. Not a real one. Dog, I thought we were just making sandwiches. So after doing as much research as I could into this place, I figured out how the cult worked. The deli was how this cult made money. You know how I said the people who worked there didn't get paid? Yeah. That's because all of the employees were a part of the cult. So they were just volunteering to work there like you would do at a church. Of course, no one told Tyler about this though. So this explained why all the people who worked there were just a little bit weird. From all the things I read about this place, I needed to disassociate myself with it as fast as possible because I wasn't sure if I was even safe anymore. But I couldn't do that before talking to my friend Charles because I trusted him. And I thought I knew him. So in my mind, there was no way he could have possibly been a part of this cult too. And I was just like, oh, he must have been tricked into working here just as I was, and he has no idea about what's really going on. Because if I didn't know about the heinous things this deli does, surely there was a chance he didn't either. So I texted him a screenshot of these articles talking about the deli being a cult, and I asked if he knew anything about this. But he just responded with,
"Don't worry about that. It's a bunch of lies.
But dog, there's pages and pages worth of information about this place online. And they weren't saying this place was maybe a cult, as if this was just a comment from some angry Yelp reviewer that didn't like the service there. No. Just about every single person online was agreeing with each other, being like, yeah, it's well known that this place is a cult, and all the people that work there are a part of it. Like, dog, they caught you in 4K. You can't say it's a bunch of lies now. So when Charles said that, I realized he must have been part of it too. And I told him I don't think I could work there anymore. But he just texted me back saying,
we'll talk about this tomorrow at work.
so as an avid movie watcher and true crime enthusiast, I could see exactly what was happening here. I was gonna walk into that deli the next day to quit, and it would be completely dark inside, except for a bunch of candles lit on the ground. And all the cult members there would be wearing masks, looking straight out of the movie Eyes Wide Shut. Then gas would suddenly spray out of the ceiling, I'd pass out, and next thing I know, I wake up and they're burning me at the stake. Your boy was about to be their newest sacrifice. I could just feel it. That was the logical thing to think, at least. So of course, I wasn't going back to that deli. I thought if I just didn't go back and I forgot all about that place, everything would be okay. But that was naive to think, because when Charles noticed that I didn't show up to work the next day, he texted me asking where I was. So I just didn't respond. But then he tried calling me. Of course, I didn't respond again, and he kept spamming me until eventually I blocked his number. I did everything possible to make sure I would never see him again, because based off everything I read about this cult, there was a chance Charles could have been dangerous. So I thought it was over and I was okay as long as I never went back to that place. But I should have known better than to think a cult would just let you leave that easily. Because a couple days later, you know who shows up to my apartment? Charles. I look through the peephole, see him, and then I tell him to go away because I was not about to be turned into a pig on a stick for the cult's amusement. So I was keeping that door shut. But then he told me he could explain everything if I would just open the door. I told him I didn't want to hear the explanation, nor did I care. But I also told him to stay away from me and I don't want to ever see him again. After a few minutes, he realized the door was not going to open and he left. To this day, he hasn't tried to contact me since. So I don't know if I just wasn't working there long enough for them to show me all the freaky cult stuff they do behind the scenes or what. But honestly, I'm glad it happened. Because at the end of the day, I didn't get harmed, but I did get some free sandwiches. And I can't lie, they may be a cult, but man, do they know how to make those sandwiches.